Good morning, John Greger from Cold Snap Photography with some more tips and tutorials. This morning we're at the Quinta Mazatlan World Birding Center. It's a beautiful place. Today we're going to be going through looking for birds, working on our autofocus settings.
I hope you enjoy the journey today with us and pick up a hint or two. Have a great
We're going to talk about focus settings and what you should put your camera on when you want to have the autofocus set right for photographing birds.
And this will work for all systems.
Basically, there are three settings on an autofocus camera: manual focus, single focus, and continuous focus.
My favorite.
That's the one you want, continuous focus. Then inside the menu, there's also settings for tracking sensitivity and tracking speed. I think Canon calls it accelerate, deaccelerate speed. And for those, you're going to want to do a little Google searching and find out what's appropriate for your brand of camera.
I turned down the sensitivity a little bit on my Canon R5 because otherwise it can jump around too fast and move around on the bird.
There's also whether you want to use a point focus system or zone focusing or wide tracking. And on mine, I flip between, I use the zone focus when I flip between about 3 squares and 5 squares.
On the Canon R5, it's interesting. I set it up with 2 back button focuses, one on a single point that is animal eye, and the other back button focus to switch it onto the animal eye, so that I choose with the first back button focus, I choose the subject matter, and then I go to the eye finder. It's very effective.
I fumble around with the back button focus. I can't even see it.
It's the barbecue back button focus in Texas.
So I use just the shutter button. I'm kind of a one button guy.
Okay. We want to talk about our drive settings for a moment. How many frames per second?
So your camera usually has several different settings depending on whether it's a mirrorless or whether it's a DSLR. Mirrorless gives you a little bit more advantage because you have more settings. You can go to an electronic shutter, and so your speed, your frames per second, can be much faster.
Be cautious. Sometimes on electronic shutter you can have some rolling shutter effects, which makes vertical objects seem to fall over.
I've covered that in a previous YouTube video, which you can check out. It's called the rolling shutter effect. What do you usually use for your settings for a number of frames per second, Tony?
Sure. You know, it's interesting. When I'm in a group of photographers, I turn it on the electronic shutter, which is silent. When I'm on my own, I sometimes put it on mechanical shutter so it makes a little noise, which the birds respond to. Sometimes negatively, but often positively.
I find I like to have my, I use the electronic shutter and I turn the volume up a little bit because of that click, click, click. It does attract their attention. Usually they're curious about it.
Yeah.
I'm selecting around 20 frames, 15 to 20 frames a second.
I'm not quite as trigger happy as John. I like 8 to 10, but boy, sometimes that 20 frames per second gets the perfect moment.
The other thing that these electronic cameras have, the mirrorless cameras, many of them have a setting that's called sports pre-shot. You'll want to check that out. It's an amazing setting. And I'm not going to go into the details of it here, but it comes in real handy. Well, those are some of the settings that you can use. They're complex, but take a little time to set your camera up and you get great results.
And put this place on your list of sites to come to in your birding life.